Hey everybody, always Dizzy here, and I am back with another round recap report from the 2024 Grand Pacific Open. So as a reminder, in round one, I was paired up against I forget his exact rating, but he was around like 1960, I think, something around there, over the board rating. And I was completely winning, but I got scared and accepted a draw offer, which I regret doing. But still, it was a good result playing somebody, 400 points higher than I, and getting a draw. So round two was on the next day. Round one was actually at 6 p.m. the night before. And then day two, we had two rounds. So I was paired up against, and I might butcher the name, so hopefully I don't butcher it too much, but uh, Yoann Destremau, um, who I couldn't find any information on. I think he was, well, I don't want to give what I'm doing in this particular tournament series is I am hiding the rating until after the game so that you can kind of guess what my opponent's ratings were after. Let me know if you like that or not. I thought I would try it. But yeah, I couldn't really find much information about him. I think he recently moved to Canada because he had a FIDE rating, but I don't think he had a CFC rating. Yeah, so I came into this game pretty fresh, and yeah, here we go. Just going to be reading my notes throughout as usual. Okay, so excuse me. So he opened with e4, and I played c5, my usual, and he played b3. So b3, an unusual line against a Sicilian. And actually, he caught me off guard because I very seldom see b3. And I actually forgot what a typical setup I normally play against b3. At the same time, it didn't bother me too much because I know that it's not really a dangerous line from white. It's not too ambitious. And I felt like, well, immediately I'm probably equal out of the gate. And yeah, so it didn't bother me, but at the same time, it was kind of funny that I was kind of more or less out of book on move two here. So I wasn't concerned, but maybe a little bit disoriented. So I played knight c6. I think you can play pretty much anything against it. And he played bishop b2. And I played knight f6. Kind of daring my opponent to play e5 here, which I wasn't worried about because I felt that pawn might get overextended. Yes, it's protected by his bishop, and d4 could protect it, but still, I think that might require some babysitting. And at the same time, I didn't mind getting into something that might be a little bit interesting here because I figured that this might not be so common if he does push. And he did push in the game. He did play e5. And I played knight d5. And yeah, in these types of positions, I don't mind them where my opponent kind of pushes the pawn far in and I have to move my knights around a lot. I feel fairly comfortable with that. I don't mind moving the same piece twice in the opening like this. I think long term, there might be more holes created than anything else. My opponent played knight c3. And I took, which was the best move from what I can remember. And I don't have the engine running here because the last time I did it, it crashes my computer when I turn it on in ChessBase. So I won't be using the engine here. But I did look at the engine, obviously, earlier. And I think black is slightly better here. So white recaptured with the bishop. And I played d5. This was my plan. So just getting my own stake of the center. He captured en passant. And yeah, I was kind of torn here on how to recapture, if I want to take with the e-pawn or the queen. I was really torn. It was almost a 50-50. Taking with the e-pawn, I felt it doesn't actually help me develop my bishop any faster because his bishop is still looming in on g7. And so again, it was a close call, but I ended up taking with the queen. I just thought I get my queen a little bit developed. He doesn't have anything to attack it immediately. And I also don't get a backwards pawn with after e takes d6. So I took with the queen. I think the computer said either way was fine. My opponent played knight f3. And then here I was puzzled on how to castle kingside. Because if you think about it, how do I move my bishop? And I wish I could get rid of these. I really wish I could get... Oh! You can get rid of the arrows. You just have to click outside the board. But you have to do it every move, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't think there's a setting. I'm looking here. I don't think there's a setting that lets me do that. But at least I can get rid of it by clicking outside the board. Yeah, okay, cool. Where was I here? Yeah, sorry. So after knight f3, yeah. So I didn't know how to castle here. Like, how do I move my bishop? If I play e6, what good does that do me? I can't play bishop e7, right? There's still bishop g7, and g6 just loses the rook. So I was confused. Like, this was actually kind of tricky to figure out. The computer, I believe, said that there were multiple decent options here. But one of the recurring ideas that the computer suggested, either immediately or in a move or two down the road, was f6. And castling manually if we have to, or maybe even just putting it on put the king on f7 and leaving it there. A benefit of f6 too, another benefit is then it helps support e5. So it's a very logical looking move, and it actually stops knight g5. Our light squared bishop is no worse for wear. Our dark squared bishop then can go to e7. So it makes sense, but it's a hard move to even consider. And I didn't consider it at all because playing f6 on move 8, it feels so wrong. But that's actually the best move here. I ended up playing e5 after a bit of a think. I didn't like putting a pawn on a dark square here, but I don't know. It felt like it's the only thing I could come up with to castle, and then bishop e7. Right? It's the only thing I could come up with. Unfortunately, this is a blunder. And I didn't realize it at the time, obviously, or even after I moved it, I didn't realize it. And my opponent didn't see the blunder either. He didn't capitalize on it. So maybe it wasn't as simple as it seems here. But like when I looked at it afterwards with the engine, it seems like so obvious. So I don't know. Let me know if you think. I guess you can take a look right now. Do you see why e5 is a blunder? Pause the video and give it a spin. And again, it looks so obvious now, but at the time, I don't know, I missed it. But at least he missed it too. So the problem is knight takes e5. And then after knight takes e5, queen e2. And if he's attacking it twice, right, the only way to defend it is f6 and then f4. And there's nothing that I can do here. I'm just I'm just losing a piece for a pawn. Or maybe I get 2 pawns out of the deal. Do I? No, I don't even. Yeah, so it's just, I just missed that. Now, note how bishop takes e5 doesn't work because after knight takes e5, queen e2, f6, the knight is still in front of the f pawn, so f4 can't be played anymore. And d4 doesn't work because I can just take it. So, yeah, that was actually a blunder early on. I'm happy my opponent didn't see it either, because that would have really hurt, man, losing right out of the opening. I can't remember the last time I made a blunder out of the opening. It's so seldom, which is, I mean, I'm fortunate. Yeah, I can't even remember it. And that's partly why I study opening so much, because when I was a kid, like I would make blunders out of the opening, and it just sucks. That's the worst feeling. That's the worst feeling, man. Because then the game's over before it even begun. Anyways, after e5, my opponent played bishop he played bishop c4, just developing his bishop so he can castle. I played bishop e6, offering a trade. So I was fine with just trades and even equalizing the position, because I thought I would gain rating if I drew. Because I thought my opponent was higher rated than me. But there's a whole other story about that, which I'll discuss at the end. Anyways, I played bishop e6. And he avoided the trade by playing bishop e5. Now, I thought this was a bit strange. And yeah, it's not the best move. It's a little bit of an inaccuracy. It's just a little bit weak. I mean, if he wanted to play bishop e5, why not play that first? Because he almost just gives me a free move. He let me basically play bishop e6 for free here. So, yeah, that was a little strange. I played f6, stopping knight g5 ideas, just bolstering e5. This is what I should have played earlier. Like, f6 makes total sense, right? Now that we see it on the board. So I could have played it earlier. Yeah. And he played queen e2. Yeah, I mean, the only thing that makes sense of why he did that is he wanted to either castle queenside or maybe rook d1, d4. I played a6, nothing fancy. He took on c6, and I recaptured. So here I was feeling pretty good. I had the bishop pair. I'm black, and I don't know. I thought that I was maybe slightly better here because of having the bishop pair. He played d3. I played bishop d6, preparing to castle kingside. And he did castle queenside here, which was, I mean, he played queen e2, so I guess he went with his plan, but still a little strange, I think, because I can attack on the queenside. So that's a little dangerous for him, especially with my bishops pointed in that direction as well. But I think it was more or less okay. And then I had a very simple plan here. Let me get rid of that little arrow. I had a simple plan. Now, this is something I'm not sure is a recent weakness of mine. I was really eager because I saw an opportunity here, a simple forced opportunity to disrupt White's pawn structure via bishop g4, and then there's no stopping. There's nothing he can do to stop me from taking twice if I have to, and then giving him pawns on h2, f2, and f3. And so thinking long term, my pawn structure is a million times better than his. At that point, he'll have 3 pawn islands, and set of double pawns, and yeah. So I thought that was a very simple and good structural plan, but the computer doesn't love it. It thinks it's a little bit of an inaccuracy. I can't remember the exact eval difference. I think it's like maybe 50, possibly 60 centipon difference. And I think the reason is because I'm giving up, it's a few reasons, but I think mainly because I'm giving up my good bishop. This is my good bishop, right? Most of my pawns are on dark squares. And so, I mean, it's kind of like a Maroczy bind, reverse or inverse Maroczy bind for black. This is my good bishop, and it's also my unique bishop. So it's clearly my good bishop compared to the dark square bishops. And so trading it off, even though I do create this weakness for white, that alone might balance, cancel each other out. The fact I'm giving up my really good, important bishop to disrupt his pawn structure. But I give up more than that because I also spend a tempo to make that happen. Because after bishop g4, he can play anything else. Then I move forward with my plan. So I spend a move and give up my good bishop to create that weakness. So instead of bishop g4, I think the computer just wants me to play anything else, just any improving move. I think just like castling, I think b5 is fine, maybe a5. So yeah, so that's kind of interesting to me, and maybe something I can do to up my game. Because when I see these opportunities to just create these long-term static weaknesses, I go for them. But I guess I really have to weigh what I'm giving up to make that happen. Okay, so I did play bishop g4, and he played h3, and I continued with my plan, and we traded queens, and so we got what I wanted. So I created these. Oh, sorry, my throat is dry. Okay, so I created these weak pawns. But I give up my good bishop. Now I'm left with a bad bishop, clearly a bad bishop. And these pawns can also start to trade themselves off, like f4, for example. Not immediately, but that's an idea, I think, for white. That would be the first thing that comes to my mind if I was white here. I didn't really know what to play here. I didn't really know how to improve my position. So I ended up playing king f7, which was as good as anything. Yeah, I thought for a bit here. I just couldn't come up with a specific plan. So I just improved my king, connected my rooks. My opponent played rook hg1. I played b5, just grabbing more space. He played rook g4. I'm not sure what he was planning here. He probably didn't have much of a plan either. Maybe he wanted something like this. I'm not sure. I played h5. And he played rook e4. Yeah, here I was looking at ways to trap the rook. I was thinking maybe f5 first. And then if he plays rook h5, he is... he's not quite trapped though, because after g5 he can actually just bring the rook here. Although then maybe my king can come in. So maybe that was a better plan. I didn't even think about just bringing in the king. Oh, but I can't go king here. Yeah, so I guess he couldn't. He would have been trapped. Well, no, then he has bishop d2. But yeah, the rook is not looking great there. But I went h5 first, so that if I did then follow up with f5, he couldn't do this. He played rook e4. And continuing with that idea, I mean, I knew that he's not getting his rook trapped here. I didn't play g5 because I thought there was no point. I played f5 in the game, knowing that he had to retreat, and then my plan was just to grab more space. I think like f4 or bring in the rooks, just grabbing more space, and then eventually I thought I would be able to get something going. Unfortunately, f5 is a I think it's a mistake. I call it a mistake. The computer isn't so harsh, and it thinks it's like a slight inaccuracy. But I think it's a mistake because I missed the obvious here. Well, so first of all, my opponent, well, I don't know how to phrase this, but so my opponent played rook e2, and here I was thinking for about 3 to 4 minutes, looking at ways to start expanding on the queen side. So I was thinking like, do I want to start with b4? Do I want to start with a5? How am I going to do this? I was kind of looking like, do I want to go b4 or a5? I was looking at ideas like this, and it wasn't until after I had been thinking that for quite some time that I actually saw that there was a big issue here. Let me just sorry. There was a big issue here that my pawn is actually just hanging right now because I played f5. He couldn't take here right now because it's defended by my bishop. But now it's kind of, I just didn't realize that he's actually attacking my e5 pawn here, and I can't actually defend it. And so, for example, like if I play a move like rook h e8, he can just double up rooks, and I have no way to defend this a third time. I can't bring in my king to f6 because then he has f4, and then I have no other way to defend it. Now he has 4 pieces attacking it, and I can't add in a 4th defender. And after rook h e8 and he doubles up, I can't go king e6 because, well, I'm blocking my rook. So I was kind of shocked that, because I had a pretty easy game so far, like no challenges that I had to deal with, and apart from maybe when I was trying to develop my bishop earlier, and I was up a pawn. Wait, am I up a pawn? No, I'm not up a pawn, but I give him double pawns, and I have more space, and I was looking at ways to attack, and then all of a sudden, I'm going to lose a pawn here. And so I ended up thinking for 12 minutes on what to do here. I was still kind of in shock. I was in shock that I just missed the obvious. After f5, all he does is retreat, and then I have no way to defend this. So it took me about 12 minutes to just accept my mistake, my oversight, and then I played rook a e8, because what else can I do? He doubled up, and I played rook h6, and he took on e5. And so here I played f4. And f4, unfortunately, is a straight up blunder. And it's the wrong continuation and completely losing now. The problem with f4 is that, and the reason I played f4 is because I didn't want white to play f5 to play f4 himself. For example, what's my move here, right? Yeah, so I didn't want to take, because I felt that he's just getting an active rook here, and he's going to win a pawn next move, right? So I didn't want to take, and I also felt if I did anything else, if I made any other move, like let's say I doubled up here, then he can just play f4. So I didn't want that, and so I played f5, stopping him from. Sorry, I played f4. Sorry, played f4, stopping him from playing f4. And if he took my bishop, then I could at least trade rooks, and he doesn't have the active rook anymore. So that was my idea. But unfortunately, this is a blunder. And the problem is that, ironically, white ends up with an active rook, while I'm left with a passive one, while already being down a pawn. So I'm trying to think of what line to show you here. Well, I guess it would just be yeah. So let me show you how the game continued. So he did take on d6, and I took on e2, and he recaptured. I took on d6, and then he played rook e5. But this is the issue. He still gets an active rook with the way I played it, and so I have this inactive passive rook. I'm down a pawn, and he's threatening to take another pawn. So the best way to play here, instead of f4, was, I think there were multiple moves. But the best, according to my notes, was rook h e6, threatening to trade off both rooks or bishops, but not giving white an active rook anymore. So now, if, for example, if he trades, wait, you can't do that. But so if he does play f4, which is what I was scared of, I think I can just, again, I don't have the engine running, so I think I can just take, and oh yeah, I remember seeing this too, and then I was scared of f4, and that was partly what prompted me to play f4 myself, because I didn't like this. But I think we could probably just play f4 ourselves right now. Or maybe even just G5, maybe. Sorry, had he taken here? Sorry, computer's running a bit slow. I might even be able to try to activate my rook. Something like this. And then trying to go after these other pawns. But this was, well, maybe not that. That might be too much. But yeah, maybe G5 or F4 here. Oh, computer, yeah, my computer is dying. But yeah, that was the best move, just to let him take the pawn, and then play rook h6. Now that's how he played f4. If he played something else, well, what else is he going to play here, right? So, anyways, I played f4, and that gave him an active rook. So this is what happened. And at this point, I kind of wanted to resign. I was not happy with missing. The f4 move here, at the time, I didn't see that was a mistake, but it was when I played f5 earlier that I was still angry at myself for playing f5 and missing that he can just bring the rook back, and I had no way to defend the pawn. So I was kind of in bad spirits, and I kind of wanted to resign. But at the same time, I know that rook and pawn endgames aren't simple, and they can often be very drawish, even if you're down a pawn, sometimes 2 pawns, sometimes 3 even. So I thought I still had a small element of hope, and I tried to give myself the best chances by playing on here. And so I played c4, which is not the top engine move, but I felt that my chances here laid best was keeping the rooks on the board, since I am down a pawn, for one thing, and being as active as possible. And I think I made the right decision. I think this was a good decision. You know, if I played something else, like, well, first of all, I'm going to lose a pawn here, right? So if I tried to get active by bringing the rook out, it just felt a little too slow. I'm not sure which one he might start with. Maybe taking on c5, and I can try to gobble these up, but he's already grabbing another one. And yeah, I don't know. It didn't didn't feel right. Although that probably is not terrible. And yeah, anyways, I played c4. He took dc. I recaptured. And he took on h5 because I guess he didn't want the double pawns. And at this point, my opponent had an hour and 13 minutes left, and I had 29 minutes. So I kind of burned a lot of time after that earlier f5 move and the subsequent moves after that. So there was a big time difference. Yeah, he has what, 50 minutes more than I do. But we are in an end game, so I still had plenty of time. But he had an enormous amount of time. I played king g6. He played rook c5. I took on b3. He recaptured towards the center. I played king f6. He played c4, and boom, there it is. So my opponent got complacent and blundered. Easy to do. I mean, he was way up on the clock. He's up 2 pawns here. What, he does have double pawns, and these are kind of weak pawns, but still he's up 2 pawns. And I think he just got a little bit complacent because c4 loses, or not loses, but throws away the win because of what I played, rook d3. And I'm going to win a pawn. Obviously, I would like to take the b pawn, but the f pawn is also pretty good because then I'm gobbling up all of these other pawns, and then I have a c pawn, or sorry, an f pawn that's ready to roll. Now, after I played rook d3, hoping my computer cooperates with me here, my opponent kept shaking his head in disgust, and he spent 11 minutes basically coming to terms with the fact that he screwed up with having played c4. So yeah, he was not happy. He kept like shaking his head and kind of in disbelief, and you could tell he was just like muttering to himself inside his head, just like, God, what did you do? Like, you were completely winning. So he ended up playing king c2. I guess he opted to keep his b pawn. I took on f3. He played rook d5. I took on f2 check. Played rook d2. And here I had obviously different options, but I felt that the simplest way forward here was to trade, which is what I did. I just felt that I could hold the draw here pretty simply because, well, without moving forward on the board right now, after he recaptures, I can play g5, and then he can't touch these pawns. These self-protect, and my king can easily stop these 2 pawns because he can't roll them forward because my a pawn can always stop his b pawn. So I felt that this had to be a draw. So he recaptured, and I did play g5. I think you also could have played a5 or bring up the king. I think every move draws pretty much, but g5 seemed the most seemed the simplest to me. He played king e2. I played a5, king f3, king e5. So around here, I forget where it was exactly, but I almost thought that I actually might possibly be winning. And I forget exactly what move that was when I thought that. Yeah, it was somewhere around here because I thought that since he's self-protect, that I might be able to just walk up and grab these pawns, but I can never, for the same reason he can't take my G pawn, I can't take his B pawn. So It wasn't very long that I thought I might be winning, but it was for like maybe 30 seconds or something. I thought maybe I have chances of winning here. But yeah, I played a5, king f3, king e5, king e2. I played king e4, king f2. Then I played king d4 and I offered a draw. Even though he should be the one offering a draw because he has way more time than I do. But yeah, I offered a draw here. And surprisingly, yeah, he declined it, which I thought was weird. Because if anybody is better here, it's me, right? My pawns are more advanced. I'm 3 squares away from queening here, right? My pawns are much more advanced than, well, not much, but they're more advanced than his pawns. So why would he decline a draw? So it kind of annoyed me a little, but you know, it's his right to play on. But why would you play on when, okay, when you're worse? Well, not worse, but again, when you're like, if anybody's better here, it's black. So anyways, he played king f3. Also, it's the first round in the day. Why drag it on? You know, finish it so that I can go get lunch and rest before the next game. Why drag on? Okay, sorry. Anyways, king f3. I played a4. And he took. I took on c4. He played h4. I took. King takes f4. Played king b4. King g4. And then I played something a little cheeky here. So to secure the draw, I can just take his pawn. But I played h3 because I think this is the right move. I think any other move is wrong. I think this is the best move because if he doesn't pay attention, you know, if he pushes his pawn for whatever reason, then I'm winning, right? So I had to try it. It's objectively the best move for that reason. So yeah, he took and then I took and okay. So yeah, it ended up in a draw. I was relieved to have drawn the game because I knew that I screwed up earlier. But also I early before I screwed up, before I played that f4, I thought I was slightly better because my pawns were better. But yeah, overall I was fine with the draw. Okay, so now I'm going to reveal the rating of my opponent. So let me do that in my software, which is really slow. My computer is so slow these days. Okay, so here it is. Drum roll. There we go. 857. So I didn't know this until I went back to my hotel room because again, I thought he was 1700, like 1750 or like something like that. So that's why a draw I was fine with because I would gain some points, a few points. And that's why also earlier in the game I wasn't trying too hard to win. Like I was okay with just getting an equal position. So it turns out that he played like a couple of like faster time control rated over the board games, but his classical national rating, he didn't have one. Well, I guess, you know, he played like one game or something. So that's why it's 857. But his FIDE was, I think it was, well, let me see here. So his FIDE, he doesn't have a classical FIDE rating, but he had a rapid FIDE rating, which was 1725. I think in France, and I think he might have played in Argentina. So I'm not sure why he was allowed to play in an under 2000 section when he's only 857. Even if he paid the play-up fees, he shouldn't have been allowed. So the only way they would have let that is if they used his FIDE rating, which I don't know. Is that fair? I mean, because he's 857. Like it's so unfair to me. Because if I win, I get no points. And I know it's provisional, so it depends. Anyways, I got a little bit annoyed about that. Whoops, didn't mean to click on that. But I got a little bit annoyed that when I saw his rating, 857. So I was pretty kind of tilted once I saw his rating. His rating aside, again, I was actually just taking a look at the game itself. I was fine with the draw because I made a couple of mistakes. Okay, so that was round 2. So at the end of round 2, my score was 1 out of 2, having drawn both games. Yeah, stay tuned for round 3, which I plan to have in a couple days from now. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up if you like. Leave a comment. I'd like to know your thoughts. And you can subscribe if you haven't already to stay tuned or to get notified of when more of my videos come out. Okay, I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. Take it easy.